Chapter 35 To the Mountains. Simon, Kenny and Sarah got to their feet and looked around. "I'm all muddy," Kenny said, looking at the back side of his trousers and then holding up his hands with an unimpressed look on his face. "Really?" Sarah asked. "What?" he protested. "Look," Simon said, pointing to the sky where the clouds had been before. The sun was starting to shine from over the mountains. "They're all gone! The Orbs! They saved us!" Sarah interrupted. A few of the creatures from the mud raised their heads and looked at the three of them. "Thank you," Simon called out to them. A few pairs of eyes blinked, but none of them responded. The creatures remained there for a few seconds and then disappeared back into the mud. "I wonder why they did that?" Simon asked, to no one in particular. "The pollution have been disrupting life in Nubaganda for a long time," Steam replied. "There are plenty of us that have had enough and are ready to fight when they need to." They went down to the river to wash away some of the mud and clean the orbs. "Which way to the mountains?" Kenny asked, eager to get going. "North, up the valley," Steam replied. "More walking?" Kenny asked with a groan. "I'm afraid so," Steam replied. "We will need to hurry. They will be back, now that they know that you have all three orbs." "Let's go," said Simon, taking the lead. They started walking up the valley. They slipped and skidded their way out of the mud and onto higher ground, where it was more steady to walk. As they walked around a bend in the valley, they got a full view of the mountains in the distance, towering above them. As they walked towards them, the mountains looked like they were rising up into the sky, getting bigger and bigger. "Why can't one of us fly?" Kenny grumbled from the back. "It would be so much easier if one of us could fly." "But none of us can we?" Sarah replied. "So we have to walk." "Let's have a rest up here," Simon said, pointing to a tree up ahead on the right. They sat down under the tree. Sarah brought out the bag of wonders and brought out food for a picnic for everyone. "Ah, that's better," said Kenny after he had eaten, patting his stomach. "See, all you needed was some food to stop you from being grumpy," said Simon. "I'm not grumpy," Kenny protested defensively. "You do get hangry," Sarah added. The three of them and Steam all looked at each other for a few seconds and then burst out laughing. Kenny knew he could be the grumpy one, but he never liked to admit it. They lay their heads down and rested, thinking of the journey they had been on and the journey still to come. "I wonder what we're doing in the real world while we're sleeping," Sarah thought out loud. "And what happens to you, Steam, when we leave?" "I bet Kenny's snoring," said Simon with a giggle. "I don't snore," Kenny replied, trying to stop himself from giggling as well. "Anyway, how can we exist in two places at once, at the same time?" "Because this is Nubaganda, the land of dreams," a voice called out. They all sat up and saw the grandmother standing there. "Some things don't make any sense, because they're not supposed to," she continued. "Where did you come from?" asked Simon. "And why are you here now?" added Sarah. "Oh, the three of you," she said with a smile. "Always full of questions and intrigue for the world. I've been watching from afar for some time, but I am not one who can interfere in the natural order of things. I can only watch, observe, and pass on information." "So why are you here now?" asked Simon. "You are nearing the end of your quest, and I have brought a friend who can help you on your way." "You just said you can't interfere," Kenny said. "I am but a messenger. I did not organize this. I am just here to explain." "Oh, okay," Kenny said, not knowing what else to say. They spotted a shadow flying in the sky. Simon put his hands over his eyes and squinted as he looked up. Could it be? "Tigra!" he shouted, waving at the shadow. "Tigra!" Tigra swooped down, the gold and white feathers on his wings shimmering as he descended. As he landed, Simon ran up to him and flung his arms around him. "Oh, I've missed you! Where have you been?" Tigra blinked and thumped his fat, spotted tail on the ground. Tigra had missed Simon too. Sarah turned to Kenny and said, "You said you wanted to fly." Kenny hesitated. "But he's not big enough," Simon said to them. The grandmother looked at all of them. "That isn't a problem," she began, and then paused. "Tigra has learned a few new tricks." "Really?" Simon asked excitedly. "What can you do?" he asked, turning to Tigra. Tigra took a deep breath and blew out a bubble that wrapped itself around Sarah. She started to float into the air. "Ah!" she yelled, pressing her hands against the wall of the bubble, trying to gain her balance. "Be careful," called out the grandmother. "If you push too hard, it may pop." Sarah pulled her hands back and looked around. Then she shrugged her shoulders and put her bags by her side. "It is rather cool." Kenny ran over towards the Greckin. "Me next!" he yelled, pushing ahead of Simon. As the Greckin blew, Simon pushed back in front of him. They both ended up in the same bubble, which hovered in the air just above the ground. "Why did you do that?" Kenny asked. "You're the one who pushed in," Simon replied. "But you pushed back." "Boys, boys," the grandmother called out. "There is no need for fighting, is there?" The two of them looked at each other, slightly annoyed at the other, but then they saw the funny side of it and started giggling, as they often did. Tigra blew another bubble around them to help them float. Then he turned to Steam and put a bubble around him as well. "How do we make these move?" Sarah asked. "You don't need to worry about that. Tigra will take care of it," the grandmother called out. "Now off you go. You must take those orbs to where they need to go." With that, the grandmother vanished. "Where did she go?" Kenny asked. "I don't know," Simon replied. Tigra flapped its wings and hovered in the air, creating a breeze that pushed the three bubbles higher into the sky and towards the mountains. With a few more flaps of its wings, they were soon speeding through the air. "Wow, this is fun!" Sarah called out. Simon and Kenny looked down and saw how high they were above the ground below. They both looked at each other with a look of horror on their faces. "Just don't look down," Simon said. "Don't worry, I won't," Kenny replied. Steam was laying down in his bubble, with his head resting on his paws. He didn't seem too fussed about the whole experience. Tigra flew behind them and directed their bubbles up into the mountains. As they came closer, they could see a flat area of rock near the top of the tallest mountain, with various creatures gathered there. At the end of the flat area, there were steps that went up to what looked like an altar.